Hello, everyone, and welcome to the March 21st Product Analytics Sync. Let's go ahead and get started with the board review. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Thank you. All right, so taking a look at the open issues, we've got the milestone planning issue, we've got logging. This is something we've been starting to work on, but kind of need to flesh out further. I think I kind of said the same thing last week, but Max, anything you want to add to this?
No, not really at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, we've discussed it briefly. There's not a lot to do at the moment.
Yeah, I think the overall end goal right now is to figure out where to collect all the logs because and we would ideally want to use something like Elasticsearch Kibana, which we're using currently at GitLab. But right now, I think kind of we can prove that out perhaps with like ClickHouse and Q perhaps, but we'll probably want to incorporate the same strategy for Snowplow and Kafka. Which I'll speak to a little bit more.
For now, at least, we've got the logs are available in the Google Cloud Console. So we're not without logging. They're just not in a centralized place.
Yeah, because ideally this can feed into how we can do counting of events and things like that. So this could feed into our overall like billing strategy and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. We've got the previous milestone planning issue, which I think we could probably just close out soon. Not already. And then we've got a couple open but assigned issues here. First thing being designer outputs incorrect visualization definition. Rob, is there anything you'd want to call out here? Just need a workflow label.
I need to review it. It was assigned to me yesterday evening in our front end kickoff. I need to review, make a call on whether this is still an issue. If it's not, if it is an issue, label it, etc. Get it put into a milestone of some kind.
All right. Next, we have part one of the UX scorecard for product analytics. Heuristic evaluation. Kevin, is there anything you'd like to call out with this issue?
No, not much. I'm just coming back from PTO, so I will start with this one.
No problem. And assume the same for the design audit, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We've got a follow-up from Save Custom Dashboards to other repos in Dashboard Designer. So this is a follow-up. Let me see.
This is related to something I raised where if you are in the UI and you create a YAML definition that for a dashboard, it gets analyzed against a different schema. So we need to look at why or how to define a rule set so it actually gets analyzed in the right way.
Okay. So
it's confusing.
Yeah, it's a backend issue that requires problem validation. So see if we can take a look at that. We've got create cube schemas to read from these Snowplow generated columns. Max, anything to add here?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. This should be in dev. It is. So I've written the schemas to replace one for one the Jitsu schemas. Tim quite rightly raised that we should be making available all of the columns in Snowplow. But I've suggested we'll do that as a follow-up. So this one will just cover replacing exactly what we have now, but with Snowplow. There's an OpenMR that I think Rob is assigned to. So once he's got a chance to look at that, then we hopefully get it merged in the not too distant future. They will exist side by side with the existing Jitsu schemas. And once we've got rid of Jitsu, we can get rid of the old schemas and just use these ones as the default. But for now, we can have both, and there's no reason not to.
Yep. Yeah, we'll kind of touch on that a little bit more in terms of the steps to decommission the Jitsu stuff. But cool. I'll coincide with my agenda point further down the agenda. Cool. That covers everything in open. We've got a couple issues in design here. Kevin, I know you just said that you came back from PTO, but is there anything else in this column that you'd want to call out?
Nope, not much. I just updated the one we talked before, like the scorecard to design. I will probably start with the scorecard as a P1.
Yep.
So yeah, if there's anything else urgent, also please feel free to let me know.
Cool. We did call out, so then planning breakdown, we have a application setting rename for Jitsu, but it makes sense that we shouldn't actually work on this since we're going to just decommission this. This is just to separate the concept of a configurator as well as the collector configurator, setting up the project and the service we interact with in the onboarding process, which we will replace with the Snowplow implementation, but it doesn't make sense to rename this to something for Jitsu when it's going to be updated for Snowplow later. We have a follow-up for updating the dashboard schemas to remove specific referrals to product analytics. Elwin has this. Not sure if there's any update here. No, it looks like we're still looking to verify the implementation plan since it's in planning breakdown. So just move right along. Got a couple of blocked issues, fetch dashboard configuration for the backend, which is something we actually still are picking up this milestone on as far as the backend is concerned, and then removing product analytics specific dashboard listing, which is blocked by.
So that's blocked by the work I'm currently doing to move the product analytics specific, the lost components over to the shared listing.
Right.
I've also just assigned the fetch the dashboard list from the backend to myself.
Okay.
Because I provisionally marked it as blocked just because I think we need to check if the implementation plan is still valid because it was written like 4 months ago. And I think a bit has changed in that endpoint that is available and how we're saving dashboards now because it's not necessarily the same.
Yeah, I think something worth calling out. Tim was of the mind that we would just continue calling the dashboards from the front end that we have work here that Alan's been working on that and Max has been working on for several months to kind of have backend as a single source of truth. What I'd love to understand if I'll ping everyone on this, but Tim's calling out some blockers in terms of like having a commit endpoint and some other integrations to actually have this working. I'm not quite clear on that. So if we can kind of dig into this, I'd appreciate that, which this issue would block or is beyond your issues dependent on that backend one. So
yeah. So depending on like which direction it will influence like how this is implemented. So that's why I marked this as blocked.
Mm-hmm. Great. Cool. Then as far as ready for development, there's one issue that is not assigned. So unless anyone can speak to that, we'll just move along. And then returning to the issue I just called out, Alan, you've been working on this one. Anything you want to call out here?
No, I've just been just getting started on it really. So
cool. Awesome. All right. And then Halil, you've got consolidating the project analytics feature flags. Anything to call out here? I know you had a Slack comment earlier.
Yeah, it's just, I just started, so it's in development now.
Great. I don't believe Sam is on the call. So James, I don't know if there's anything you can call out for the internal preview blog post.
Blog post is scheduled to release on Monday.
Nice. Exciting stuff. We've got put an add dashboard button on the analytics listing page. I don't believe Tim's on the call. It looks like we still have a draft MR there. So I think that status is accurate. Jan, you've already called this issue out as something you're working on to unblock the other blocked issue. Anything additional you'd want to call out here?
Just that this will probably be several MRs since it is a multifaceted issue in that one on the surface, we're just pulling in the product analytics stuff into the shared listing. Mm-hmm. The follow-up issues for this is removing all of the existing product analytics files because they're no longer needed with the onboarding moved over. That's the last bit of functionality we need. Yep. The other one is implementing a architecture where other teams like Optimize can easily slot in their features into that list of like available features dashboard list. That's something that I've struggled to figure out how we're going to do that for the past few days, but I think I finally cracked it. Okay. So yeah, this will be moving into review shortly.
Sounds good. I have a more in-depth update here, but effectively Bossy has been doing a lot of work to get Kafka and Snowplow integrated into our Helm chart. And so we're kind of splitting a little bit of that up, and then I'll speak to more of the overall strategy for the Snowplow implementation after the board review. Moving on to in review, we've got defining permissions for who can access feature screens for product analytics. Alan, anything you would want to call out here?
That one's currently set to merge right now, so
nice.
It'll be closed pretty soon.
Great. And then we've got Elwin with a feature spec for the dashboards visualization designer. Not sure if there's any update here.
I've just reviewed it as a maintainer. So once we've had that conversation, it'll get merged soon.
Sounds good. I have not made any progress here. I've been focused on the Snowplow implementation. And then we've got the add product analytics application setting for collector host. Halil, anything you want to call out with this issue?
Yeah, so basically this was from the last milestone, but there is a change that, yeah, in the previous, my approach there, I didn't think about the part that some of our self-serve customers might be enabling this feature flag already. So that's why we changed the approach a bit. Now the new approach is under review, but it's in the initial review. So hopefully in the next few days, I think it will be finished. Yeah.
Sounds good. And we've got add empty states to panels, which I think Ellen had a agenda point to call out, but we can just take a look at it real quick. It's in review, and it looks like there's still some discussion as far as requirements are concerned or behavior. So anything worth calling out here, Jan or James? I know you, just because you've been in the thread.
Yeah, I think it would be one thing, like there is an agenda item for this, but the question that I have, James, on your answers, you said you're in favor of my approach, but I'm not entirely sure which approach you're referring to, whether it's the displaying the text or displaying the number 0 for single stats.
Displaying the text, the no results match to query. I think 0 can be a valid statistic for either of these. There could be cases of that showing up. And so we'd rather show if there's no data that there's no data versus there's a 0 count.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll update the implementation plan to match.
Thanks.
Great. Previously, we had strategy for pre-built dashboards. So let's go down here. Looks like we've got about 6 issues. So back to you, Jan. You have 2 issues here that are enclosed, handling if a dashboard is not available with 4.4 and updating chart visualizations to fill the panel container. Anything worth calling out for these issues?
Not really, except with the charts with the charts finally filling out their panel containers. I think that is the majority of our glaring UX and UI bugs that are now squashed. So please, everyone, go ahead and use the dashboard that is available on like staging or on the internal handbook, and let us know if you find anything else. But I think it looks a lot better as it is right now than it was before.
For sure. And then we've got an issue being worked on by Lorenz in fixing spec violations for the metric chart spec. So it's great to see. And then, Alan, you've been working on adding an API to retrieve the state of the project analytics stack. Anything worth calling out here?
No, that's been merged. The GraphQL field's available. I don't think anything's using it yet, but we're there.
Got it. Yeah, we might have to schedule a front-end related issue for that. Cool. And then we've got the column chart, which is merged in, so that's great. So hopefully we can start using that for new visualizations, or new charts rather. And then Kevin, you've done some work to learn the project analytics domain. Anything you wanted to call out?
No, not so much. I'm still a bit confused with the listing, like the common listing and single listing. So I'll need to dive a bit deeper into that, but I also expect to kind of learn more as I go into the weeds of the different design issue I pick up. So that's also why I closed it.
Okay. Cool. All right, that wraps up the board review. So then Ellen has a agenda item that I'll vocalize for getting thoughts on the question for empty states. Looks like we've got some opinions already in terms of representing null versus 0. So if anyone else has thoughts there, please chime in. Otherwise, I have the rest of the agenda. So probably about 90 more seconds of listening to me. Just wanted to provide an update of what's going on with the Snowplow integration update. I just got out of a working session with Basti, who's been doing a lot of work to get Snowplow and Kafka integrated into our stack. There's a little bit more work to do there in terms of making sure it's a smooth installation process as far as, you know, how we can manage it, how we'll install it, as well as how other users will be using it as well. So hopefully we can make some progress in the next couple of days and then start to push that out to dev staging and production, and then start to test it out. So after we get the chart ready to go, we'll verify it by instrumenting the metrics dictionary. For those that aren't familiar, it's the metrics we collect through our existing Snowplow implementation. So it's just another project just to kind of test it out with something new. If that looks good, then we'll switch over to the internal handbook. And then before we can really move the rest of the projects over, or as far as like not the data, but like just sending events over, there's a Go service that Product Intelligence is working on to actually replace a lot of the automation that we're relying on Jitsi to do in terms of the table setup and all the connection setup there, so that we can verify that we are ready to receive events, and so that our UI responds accordingly. So, you know, if it, based on the work that we just kind of went over in terms of the cluster state, you know, if we're actually ready to receive events and are receiving events, then we can actually show the dashboard and things like that. So that's a big tie-in that, or a big dependency we need as far as our onboarding flow is concerned. After that, then we can, that effectively means that we're ready to decommission Jitsi. And so we'll start to remove the services, remove it from our charts, and yeah, move on from there. And then the final point, I just wanted to signal boost this. You saw this in the Slack channel already, but if for those that are curious in terms of kind of what happens with the infrastructure side of things, Rob and I had a working session to upgrade our Helm chart to do some knowledge sharing and produce some documentation. So far, the documentation is just a kind of very onboarding specific in terms of how do you get the chart set up and install it, but it doesn't really go over things like how do you update it and publish changes out to different clusters. So feel free to check that out. So that was a lot of talking. Anyone have any other topics they'd like to discuss?
Just one thing that I haven't. Oh, sorry. Who was that? One thing that I haven't mentioned in terms of the switch from Jitsi to Snowplow, from my point of view, Willow, quiet. Sorry, is that the funnel generation requires will require changes in the GitLab API specifically because it generates SQL that Cube then runs. So we'll have to make sure that we coordinate that part. So while we can have both the Snowplow and the Jitsi Cube schemas running simultaneously, we can't have the API running simultaneously. Right. So we'll just have to make sure we time that right. I know we're not really using funnel analysis all that much right now, so it's not a huge problem, but definitely something to be aware of when we do the switch.
Makes sense. Well, thanks for calling that out. Even if like we do want to get into funnels as soon as possible, so we just want to make sure we don't trip over ourselves as we do the switch over. So it's definitely worth calling out. James, you have a point.
Yeah, I had mentioned weekly active users at least half a dozen times, if not more, yesterday in the deck. I didn't see an issue for tracking, and I don't see anything in Sisense. Is that something we think we can fit into our first external user epic? It'd be great to get a count of how many users are editing charts and how many users are looking at charts.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we can definitely use our conventional. So one thing I want to, would love to use a Sisense dashboard and just do the standard like Snowplow instrumentation. This gets confusing since we're using Snowplow, but our existing instrumentation for actually how we track feature usage. One thing I wanted to verify, maybe we can do both, but what I was trying to say is maybe we, like, since we're using Snowplow, which is already like users are opting into that instrumentation, I wonder if we can then start to actually instrument GitLab, the project itself, and then be able to actually dog food our own dashboard to see like how our weekly active users are looking if we only instrument the analytics features, at least to start.
Yeah,
but that's sort of.
I asked Sam about that, and he said that there was some issues with that initially as far as getting user consent. I'll revisit that and figure out where the hiccups are.
Right.
But I'll create the issue to get tracking into Sisense or into metrics.gitlab, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so to answer your question, we don't have an issue yet. So thanks for setting that up. There were issues previously with legal as far as like the non-Snowplow uses, because that's another way of we're collecting another host. But if we are,
yeah, I think we could probably do it in a for depending what we define as an active user. You know, we can track things like projects that have product analytics enabled, for example, and we can instrument that in Sisense.
Yeah, so we can start with that, but it'd be great if we can really start dogfooding that as well. But yeah, the main point is just making sure that whoever will be captured in events, that we're okay to do so. So yeah. Cool. Any other topics? All right. Well, it's good to see everyone. 9 minutes back. Have a good rest of your days.